will talk about Financial Management Chapter 11, Capital Structure Theories. I repeat, now we'll talk about Financial Management subjects. Chapter 11 is that Capital Structure Theories. So, what is going on is that there are basically three approaches to capital structure decision. Net income approach, net operating income approach, Modigliani Miller approach. Net income approach. Now we will talk about the first point is that net income approach. Net income approach. According to this approach, the cost of debt capital KD and the cost of equity capital KE remains unchanged when D upon S. The degree of leverage whereas here S stand for total capital employed is equal to D plus E. The constancy of KD and KE with respect to the degree of leverage means that KO, the average cost of capital measured by the following formula, declines as the degree of leverage increases. K0 is equal to KD multiplied by D upon D plus E whole plus KE multiplied by E upon D plus E. The formula equation is or this happens because when the degree of leverage increases, KD, which is lower than KE, receives a higher weight in the calculation of KO. This can also be illustrated by a graph shown in figure 11.1. Here you can see the graph here. Table 1, income of investors. Mhm. This happens because when the degree of leverage increases, KD, which is lower than KE, receives a higher weight in the calculation of KO. This This can also be illustrated by graph shown in figure. You can see the graph here. X-axis represents the degree of leverage D upon S. Y-axis represents that cost of capital. So when the cost of capital, when the degree of leverage is D upon E, D, um, leverage D upon S is 0. Cost of we increasing the cost of capital to KA to KD, and you can see the graph here like zigzag line. KE, KO, and K, and KD. As our assumption is that the cost of debt and equity capital would not change with the change in the level of leverage. KO is seen to go down with the increasing proportion of debt in the capital. Note that we are talking about the market value of debt and the market value of equity. Many times we confuse it with book value of debt and equity. A measure that always leads to problem in measuring the true cost of debt and equity. Let us take a company that has an investment of rupees 1 lakhs in and a net operating income of rupees 10,000. It's considering two scenarios. First one, no debt, and second one is equal level of debt and equity of rupees 50,000 each. Let us say that the company finds out that the cost of equity is 10% and the cost of debt is 6%. Calculations show that equity earning would be 10,000 and rupees 7,000 respectively in two scenarios as shown below. As the return expected on equity is 10,000, we can say that this profit is 10% and therefore the market value of equity would be just that this return becomes 10% on the same. This means that the market value of equity would be rupees 1 lakhs and 70,000 respectively in the two scenarios. Adding the market value of debt and Market value of equity gives us a total value of the firm in the market. Equity. You can see the here some parameters. Equity scenario A, scenario B. Will we will see. I will first of consider some points: equity, debt, cost of equity, cost of debt, net operating income, interest of debt, equity earning, market value of equity, market value of debt, total value of the firm. For scenario A, it's all below down the respectively. 1 lakh 0 to 10%, 6%, 10,000 0, 10,000, 1 lakh 0, 1 lakh. For scenario B, it's is sounds like that. 50,000, 50,000, 10%, 6%, 10,000, 300, 700, 3,000, 7,000, 70,000, 50,000, 1 lakh to 20,000. Average cost of capital. Scenario A, 6% multiplied by 0 upon 1 lakh plus 10% multiplied by 1 lakh upon 1 lakh is equal to 10%. Scenario for scenario B is it like that? 6% multiplied by 50,000 upon 1,20,000 plus 10,000 multiplied by 70,000 upon 1 lakh is equal to 8.33. There are 3 points to be noted here. As the cost of capital decreases, the value of the firm would go up as it is dependent upon the return expected and the cost of capital. Inverse relationship exists between the value of firm and the cost of capital for any given level of return. Second thing is this means that as we increase the level of debt in the company, the value of the firm would go up even further. This would mean that the companies would like to employ as much debt as possible, something that doesn't happen in the real world. Third point is that Note that we have not considered the effect of taxes. If we consider the same, the value of the farm would go up even further because of the interest tax shield, an effect that we consider later. Now we'll talk about the net operating income approach. Second approach. Taking an opposite view from the view taken in the net income approach, this approach states that the cost of capital for the whole firm remains constant irrespective of the leverage employees at the firm. With the cost of debt and the cost of capital constant, we can say that the cost of equity capital changes with the leverage to compensate for the additional leverage of level of risk. Putting it simply, according to the net operating income approach, for all degrees of leverage, there are 2 points. Overall capitalization rate remains constant. Second thing is the cost of debt remains same. Given this, the manipulating the equation of the firm's total cost of capital, we can express the cost of equity The equation is below is that K is equal to K0 plus K0 minus Kd multiplied by D upon D plus E. This is illustrated below in figure. You can see the here. You can see here figure here, and it represents that graph represents that x-axis represent degree of leverage D upon S, and y-axis represents cost of capital. So it's something like K, K0 and KO and KD. Let us repeat the example we discussed earlier in net income approach. Let us take a company that has an investment of rupees 1 lakhs and a net operating income of rupees 110,000. It's considering two scenarios: no debt, and second thing is equal level of debt and equity of 50,000 each. Let us say that the company finds out that the overall cost of capital is 8% and the cost of debt is 6%. Calculations show that equity earning would be 10,000 and 7,000 respectively in the two scenarios as shown below. As the return expected on total capital is 8%, therefore the market value of total capital would be such that this return would becomes 8% on the same. This means that the market value of capital would be rupees 1,25,000 in both the scenarios, as our assumption in this case is that the total market value remains constant. Also, the value of debt would be remain constant as the cost of debt remains constant. This means that the equity capitalization that can be calculated by subtracting the market value of debt from the total market value of the firm, then the return on equity divided by market capitalization of equity would be give us cost of equity. You can see here figure here. Now I will talk about the list: equity, debt, cost of debt, net operating income, overall capitalization rate, total market value, interest on debt, debt capitalization rate, market value of debt scenario A. We can see above line is that the equity capitalization rate of scenario A and B are as follow. Market value of debt scenario A, equity earning, market value of equity, market value of equity, degree of leverage, scenario B, equity earning, market value of equity. For scenario A is it listed as below 1,06%, 10,000, 8%, 1,25,000, 0.06. For scenario B, it's listed as below, respectively. 50,000, 50,000, 6%, 10,000, 8%, 1,25,000, 3,000, 0.06. So the equity capitalization rate of scenario B and A are as follow. We already talk about that portion. Now we will talk about equal line left side, right? I mean right side things calculations. 0 10,000 is equal to 0.08 50,000 is equal to 0. Is equal to 8%. 1,25,000 you can see. I will leave this one. There are 3 points to be noted here. Now we'll talk about the second point. This means that as we increase the level of debt in company, the value of the firm doesn't change and the company does not benefit by taking on debt. This would mean that the companies would like to employ as much equity as possible so as to reduce the risk of the company, something that doesn't happen in real world again. Companies do benefit from taking on debt. First part is that as the cost of total capital and debt is constant, the cost of equity would go up or down with increasing or decreasing leverage. You can see the example, the amount of debt in the equity. Third point is that not that we still not consider the effect of taxes. With these two scenarios in mind, let us look at what one of the most surprising theories of finance says about the capital structure. Modigliani-Miller approach. Modigliani-Miller approach. In 1958, in 1958, Franco Modigliani and Merton Miller. MM published one of the most surprising theories of the modern financial management. They concluded that the value of the firm depends solely on its future earnings stream, and hence its value is unaffected by its debt equity mix. In short, they concluded that a firm's value stems from its assets, regardless of how those assets are financed. In other words, the variant of the net operating income approach discussed above. This finding has thus widespread implications that the article was judged by the member of Financial Management Association to have had more impact on financial management than any other published work. In their paper, MM began with a very restrictive set of assumptions, including perfect capital market, which implies zero taxes, and then they used an arbitrary proof to demonstrate that capital structure is irrelevant under their assumptions. in their paper. MM began with very began with a very restrictive set of assumptions, including perfect capital market, which implies zero taxes. And then they used an arbitrary proof to demonstrate that capital structure is irrelevant. Under their assumptions, if debt financing resulted in a higher value for the firm that equity financing, then investor who owned a share in a leveraged debt finance firm could increase their income by selling those shares and using the proceeds, plus borrowed funds to buy shares in an unleveraged or equity financed firm. This simultaneous selling of shares in the leveraged firm and buying of shares in the unleveraged firm would drive the price of the stocks to the point where the value of the two firms would be identical. Thus, according to MM hypothesis, a firm's stock price is not related to its mix of debt and equity financing. Modigliani, Clini, and Miller have restarted, restated and amplified the net operating income position in terms of three basic proportions. These are as follows. These are as follows. Proposition 1. The total market value of a firm is equal to its expected operating income, EBIT, when tax is 0, divided by the discount rate appropriate to its risk class. It's independent of the degree of leverage. VL is equal to VU EBIT upon K0 L. Up is equal to EBIT KE L. Here the subscript L is used to denote leverage the firm, and a subscript U is used to denote unleveraged firm. Since the V value of the firm as established by the above equation is a constant, then under the model, where there are no taxes, the value of the firm is independent of its leverage. This implies that the weighted average cost of capital to any firm is completely independent of its capital structure and the WACC for any firm, regardless of the amount of debt it uses. It equal to the cost of equity is unleveraged firm employing no debt. Proportion to the expected yield on equity, K is equal to the K0 plus a premium. This premium is equal to a debt equity ratio times the difference between K0 and the yield on K and debt KD. This means that as the firm's use of debt increases, the its cost of equity also rises. And in a mathematically precise manner. Proportion 3. The cutoff rate for investment decision making for a firm in a given risk class is not affected by the manner in which the investment is financed. To emphasize the point that investment and the financing decisions are independent because the average cost of capital is not affected by a financing decision. Example: let us take the case of two firms X and Y, similar in all except in their capital structure. Firm X is financed by equity only. Firm Y is financed by a mixture of equity and debt. The financial setting or parameters of the two firms are as follows. Financial Now we'll talk about its example.
Let us take the case of two firms X and Y, similar in all except in their capital structure. Firm X is financed by equity only. Firm Y is financed by a mixture of equity and debt. The financial parameters of the two firms are as follows. Financial particulars of firms X and Y. Now we'll talk about this whatever graph or whatever figure, which is a chart. Total capital employees in rupees, equity capital in rupees, debt in rupees, net operating income in rupees, debt interest in rupees, market value of debt in rupees, debt capitalization is 5%. Debt interest in rupees, market value of debt in rupees, to debt capitalization rate is 5%. Equity at earning in rupees, equity capitalization rate, market value of equity in rupees, total market value in rupees. Firm X and Y, right? Firm X, 1 lakh, 1 lakh nil, 1 lakh 0 0 1 lakh 8 percentage, 12 lakh 50,000, 12 lakh 1 lakh 6, 10 lakh 10 lakh, right? 10 lakh 6 lakhs 4 lakh 1 lakh 20,000, 4 lakhs 20,000, 4 lakhs 80,000, 12%, 6 lakh 66,000, 667, 10 lakh 10,000,666,667. From the above particular, it can be seen that the value of leveraged firm Y is higher than that of the unleveraged firm. According to Modigliani Miller approach, such a situation cannot persist, persist because equity investors would do well to sell their equity investment in firm Y and invest in the equity firm X with personal leverage. For example, an equity investor who owns 1% of equity in firm Y would do well to sell his equity in firm Y for rupees 6,667, borrows rupees 4,000 at 5% interest on personal account, and buy 1.0667% of equity of firm X with amount of rupees 10,667 that he has. Such an action will result in the following income. Income on investment in firm X in rupees 1066.7 less interest for 400,000 multiplied by 0.5 is equal to 200. Net income 866.7. This is net income of rupees 866.7 is higher than the net income of rupees 800 foregone by selling 1% as equity of firm Y, and leverage ratio is the same in both the cases. When investors sell their equity in firm Y and buy the equity firm X with personal leverage, the market value of equity firm Y tends to decline and market value of equity of firm X tends to rise. This process continues until the net market value of both the firms become equal, because only the possibility of earning a higher income for a given level of investment and leverage by arbitraging is eliminated. As a result of this, the cost of capital for both the firms is the same. The above example explained that due to the arbitrage mechanism of in mechanism, the value of a leveraged firm cannot be higher than that of an unleveraged firm. Other things being equal, it can also be proved that the value of an unleveraged firm cannot be higher than that of leveraged firm. Other things being equal. If a situation like this arises, equity investor in firm X would do well to sell the equity in firm X and use the proceeds partially for investment in equity firm of Y and partially for investment in debt of firm Y. For example, an equity investor who owns 1% equity in firm X would do well to sell his 1% equity in firm X for rupees 12,050 by 1.01 percentage of equity and debt in firm Y, involving an outlay of rupees 12,500. Such an action will result is in an increase of income rupees 172 without changing the risk shouldered by the investor. When investor resorts to such a change, the market value of the equity firm of X tends to decline and the market value of equity firm of Y tends to rise. This process continues until the total market value of both the firms becomes equal. Criticism of hypothesis. The arbitrage process is an behavioral foundation for the thesis. The shortcomings of the thesis lies in is an assumption of perfect capital market in which arbitrage is expected to work. Due to the existence of imperfections in the capital market, arbitrage may fail to work and may give rise to discrepancy between the market value of levered and unlevered firms. The arbitrage process may fail to bring equilibrium in the capital market for the following reasons. Lending and borrowing rates discrepancy. The assumptions that firms and individuals can borrow and lend at the same rate of interest does not hold good in practice because of the substantial holding of fixed assets. Firms have a higher credit standing. As a result, they are able to borrow at lower rate of interest than individuals. If, if the cost of borrowing to an investor is more than the firm's borrowing rate, then the equalization process will fall short of completion. If the cost of debt is paid by the firm is less than the paid by investor, then the value of the levered firm VT must exceeds the value of unlevered firm V1 for total return to be equal. For example, if the investor can borrow at 9%, his returns after switching will be only rupees 5,550. Consequently, it does not follow the market opportunity and forces will lead VD into equality with VU. Non-substitutability of personal and corporate leverage. હું ગુજારી જઈને છે તમે It is incorrect to assume that personal homemade leverage is a perfect substitute for corporate leverage. The existence of limited liability of firms and contrast with unlimited liability of individuals clearly places individuals and firms on different footing in the capital market. If a levered firm goes bankrupt, all investors stand to lose the extent of the amount of the purchase price of their shares. But if an investor creates personal leverage, then in the event of the firm's insolvency, he would lose not only his principal in the shares of the unleveraged company, but will also be liable to return the amount of his personal loan. Thus, in the investor keeps his investment in the levered firm. His loss in the event of bankruptcy will be rupees 6,000. But if he engages in arbitrage transaction and invests in the unlevered firm, he, he can lose his principal investment of rupees 500,000 and will also be liable to return rupees 5,000 borrowed by him on the personal account. Thus, it's more risky to create personal leverage and invest in the unleveraged firm than investing directly in the levered firm. Transaction costs. The existence of transaction costs also interferes with the working of arbitrage because of the cost involved in the buying and selling securities. It would become necessary to invest a greater amount in order to earn the same return. As a result, the levered firm will have a higher market value. Institutional restrictions. Institutional restrictions also impede the working of arbitrage. Durald point out that homemade levered is not practically feasible as a number of institutional investors would not be able to substitute personal levered of for corporate leverage simply because they are not allowed to engage in the homemade leverage. Existence of corporate tax. The incorporation of the corporate income taxes will also frustrate MM's conclusions. Inter- Interest charges are tax deductibles. This, in fact, means that the cost of borrowing funds to the firm is less than the contractual rate of interest. The very existence of invest charges gives the firm a tax advantage, which allows it to return to its equity and debt holders a larger stream of income that it otherwise could have. For example, suppose x is equal to rupees 10,000 and kd is equal to 0.06 and dt is equal to rupees 20,000. Let us corporate income tax rate equal 50%. Thus, the unlevered firm will have rupees 5,000. Rupees 10,000 in counts 1 minus 0.50 counts out, counts is over. For distribution for distribution to its equity share holder, the levered firm is must pay a total tax of rupees 4,500. Half 4,000 is that rupees 0.5 multiplied by 10,000 minus 12,000 100 1,200 1200 rupees, which levels leaves it rupees 5,600 to distribute to its equity and debt holders. Rupees 4,400 to equity holders and rupees 1,200 to debt holders. Thus, the total return to debt and equity holder from the unlevered firm are less than that of levered firm. Hence, the total market value of a levered firm should tend to exceed that one of the levered firm for this very reason. This point is elaborated further in the following section. Relevance of capital structure, the hypothesis under corporate taxes. Now we'll talk about another point, section, another topic. Another point is that relevance of capital structure, the hypothesis under corporate taxes. Hypothesis, that is that the value of the firm is independent of its debt policy is based on the critical assumption that corporate income taxes do not exist. In reality, corporate income taxes exist, and interest paid to debt holders is treated as deductible expense. Dividends paid to shareholders, on the other hand, are not tax deductible. Thus, unlike dividend, the return to debt holders is not subject to the taxation at the corporate level. This makes debt financing advantageous. In their 1963 article, MM saw, MM saw that the value of the firm will increase in debt with debt due to the deductibility of interest charges for the tax computations. And the value of the leveraged firm will be higher than of the unlevered firm. Consider an example. Illustration 6. Illustration 6. Suppose two firms U and L are identical in all respects except the use of debt. Firm U is an all equity finance the firm with rupees 10,000 equity capital, while firm L employs rupees 5,000 equity and rupees 5,000 debt at the 14% rate of interest. Both firms have an expected earning before interest and taxes of rupees 2,500, pay corporate tax at 50% and distribute 100% earning as dividend to shareholders. The after-tax accruing to investors is shown in table given below. Note, note, note the in table that the liability of firm L is rupees 350 less than of firm U. The total income of investors of firm L is more by that account. This amount is interest tax shield provided by the debt of firm L 0.5 multiplied by 0.14 multiplied by 5,000 is equal to 0.5 multiplied by 700 is equal to rupees 350. Thus, interest tax shield is equal to tax rate multiplied by interest. INTS is equal to T multiplied by INT is equal to T multiplied by KDT, where K is the cost of debt and D is the amount of debt. Table: income of investor of levered and unlevered firms under corporate income tax. Income, you can see the table here. Income firm U and firm L. Income 1. EBIT X 2. Interest INT KD is equal to KDT is equal to KDT. 3. Profit before tax. Profit before tax X bar minus KDT. For tax is tax T is equal to 0.5 T minus KD D. Fifth, profit after tax minus KD minus T multiplied by minus KDT is equal to minus KDT in counts multiplied by in counts 1 minus T. Sixth, dividends to shareholders minus KDT multiplied by 1 minus T I minus T. Seventh, interest to debt holders KDT. Total income of investors KDT multiplied by I minus T plus KDT is equal to 1 minus T plus T KDT. Ninth, interest tax shield TKDT. Firm U and firm L 2500 0 2500 1250 1250 12500 for firm L 2500 700 1800 900 900 900 701600 350. interest tax shield (INTS) is an inflow to the firm and therefore it is valuable. Suppose that firm L will be employed up to rupees 500 forever. If the firm else debt L debt of rupees 5,000 is permanent, then the interest tax shield of rupees 350 is a permanent perpetuity. Perpetuity. What is the value of this perpetuity? For this, we need a discount rate which reflects the richness of those cash flows. The levered firm's after-tax earning consist of operating income and interest tax shield as given below. After-tax earning of all investor, after-tax corporate operating income plus income interest tax shield is equal to 1 minus T plus T